namaste, boker tov, yom tov, zarim tovim, and lila tov, and chadutha. May joy be apparent in your life today and overflowing as we are coming into the comprehension of the beauty of the mystery of the many who are one. It's definitely a joy unspeakable thing felt at the heart level. So may that bless you today, chadutha. And I have Brandon here again today, and we are super excited to continue this. I am so grateful that Brandon suggested that we do this topic about spookifying the things that have really held us back. I am going to let you guys know that I am my physical vessel is very tired. I have been up since 2:30 in the morning, and it is currently 11 a.m. my time. And I asked Brandon to really help me. So if your guys' energy is high and you're following along on this, I'm sure I will perk right up. But no amount of caffeine or tea has helped this vessel today. So having said that, I'm a little rummy. And if I'm a little rummy, that means I'm going to probably be laughing a lot. And it has nothing to do with me being uncomfortable, because I have shared with you guys that it's my knee-jerk reaction. It's just what happens when I'm sleepy. I'm like slap happy. So expect a lot of laughter today, and if I'm stumbling on my words, I probably will laugh at myself as my physical vessel is going, sister, give it a break, go take a nap. And I'm like, no, there's things to do, people to see, and I get to talk to Brandon and everybody else who decides to show up today.
That's right.
Anyway, awesome. I'm really happy with who we're seeing already. So welcome. I'm so glad that you guys are here. I did ask a favor of you guys, and just Brandon, I was telling everybody that, I use that word, catching my human. I don't tell, I share. I asked people to, if they have questions, especially when we go into the screen share and I'm talking about the verse, if they can put it in all caps. So if you're monitoring the chat while we're talking, then it might make it easier for you, because I really don't want to miss questions. I just can't see it, because once I get into my document, all I see is the document. So I'll need you to help me with that and assist it, because I really want to answer questions today if people are not getting what I'm sharing, especially since I'm a little on the rummy side today. So anyway.
Gotcha. We can do that.
So what were your thoughts about last week?
I thought everything was really good. What I love is always, and what you share is that what we read in the English is not at all what was being really said. And to be honest, I would like for you to refresh mine. I know we were going to do a quick recap just to kind of jargle my memory. I've had a lot going on as well, and these energies that have been coming in, I know everybody has been feeling them, and it's just been being kind of tossed around a little bit. So I got to catch the tail end of it, but just to help refresh and peak my memory back up, if we could go and do a quick recap.
Yeah, absolutely. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do a screen share on the document so we can take a look at it. And again, thank you guys for showing up today and being here. I still have a nagging cough that I will have to be putting up with while we're doing this. So just extend me some grace, and I'll do my best to not be hacking so much that it causes too much of an inconvenience for people on listening. It's driving me nuts. So if it's driving me nuts, it's got to be driving you nuts. Oh my gosh. Okay, so recap. We went over so much last time, and I know Mark Manning said something about that it was a lot, a lot to process. And in my zeal, I took us a little too far. With this amount of food, with this amount of light, I can go for a very long time on this, because my body is accustomed to it. But especially when you're hearing new things, spirit can only absorb so much before it goes, I need to push away from the table. So I'm hoping that I will not do that to you today. We may get through a couple words, and I really do want to answer questions. So what we had determined at the very beginning of this, as you look at this, we were talking about the process of turning the haya to become to be, and the embracing of the spirit breath, which the spirit breath is really the ruka. It's that of the essence of the unseen, but it's felt within. And that this whole thing was about us being able to turn and have a new seed of life that was being presented to us. And it's for the sojourners, for those who travel, and that there's a period of time that is coming where there's going to be new food that is meant to nourish you, but it is going to be something that is like a sword and a plow. And it is a period of time where there's a season where you are being presented, because we did connect this to go buy oil in the parable of the foolish and the wise brides, that there's a season and time and an opportunity for you to purchase and buy oil, that which you need to enter into really. I was talking to Doug this morning, and the best way to describe this is kind of universalism, the oneness message, that there's a season and time, and that was an actually prayer that was added here, that those who were going to be building this were going to be earnestly saying, we beseech thee, please nourish yourself with this new food that is coming in, because there's things that need to be cut off. And then there is a new field that needs to be plowed so that this new seed, the noon, can be planted within you to bring this message forward. And then we moved into this idea of this teaching and instruction based on a doctrine, where the old style that we had been eating from, the manna, was the Lamed teachings. And this was really the rod of authority, the teacher who would possess this, which would have students under them. And it was helping teach to bring things together in the process of studying and knowledge that would sting and goad and urge you into the next phase. So the Lamed teaching was really mother, masculine, to build the form. What this is not Lamed. They could have used that word in here, but they did not. They used the word Yelaf, which comes from Aleph. And Aleph is like the crux of the entire message, the mystery of the many who are one soul, one heart, one mind, as whole, no longer divisible. And in the way it was written, it was saying, hey, you guys are weak and feeble. You have something that's dangling that you need to connect to. So these new teachings are coming so you can connect to your heart the instruction that is necessary for you to be able to have a mouth to speak forth these things, and then for you to carry on the same prayer, we beseech thee, turn into this new season and opportunity for these teachings to come. And then we got to how this brings us to be whole, the message of wholeness, not oneness, because that's what Brandon and I actually were talking about a little earlier today, this message of wholeness, not just oneness, where we become healthy, sound, and strong. And this was huge, because we even were talking about that turning the water into wine was more like a Hebrew idiom, and it was actually embraced right here, that there is a process of this fermentation of making something last, because like with grapes, they couldn't store grapes. They didn't have a refrigeration process, so it had to go through the fermenting process so that it would last. So we're taking something, and we've heard this in the Christian church about the latter-day generation, the new wine generation, right? Well, these teachings were going to help us with the new wineskin so that we could become whole, healthy, and strong with the new wine that was coming forward. And this was something that was going to make us plump and to bind firmly. Because once these things happen and you enter into this, you will not leave it, and you will not depart from it at all. And then we talked about the Lamed Aleph, the purpose of the teaching staff, the teaching in the way of one, that if it's coming to you in the not form, it means that you haven't learned this process of the oneness principality, about how to link together. And this is a critical piece, because we've talked many times in many different occasions, Brandon and I, about building what does community look like? What does sustainable community look like? And the only way that can happen is if you are able to link together and be connected in this oneness principality. Well, yeah, it is. It's actually a principality, a thought form that we come under and be a part of. That is an instruction in the way to walk. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you are in the wholeness, the wholeness portion of that yet. Right? And so that's why these teachings have to come, because it's one thing for us to say, well, I know what your oneness is, and I'm one with this, and I'm one with that, I'm one with you, I'm one with the earth, I'm one with all things. But if you haven't actually become whole, healed, and healthy, then you're still under that rod of instruction. And then we got the word about hear, obey, listen, understand, to instruct, to hear, and announce. And the beauty of this, because it had the word mayon in it, which has to do with heating, and what teleologically, what does that mean as a motive and an aim? Relating, and I love this, teleological, relating to or involving the explanation of phenomena in terms of the purpose they serve rather than the cause, by which they arise, relating to the doctrine of design and purpose in the material world. For me, that is huge to see that these teachings are coming is pointing us to the reason what they're pointing to. I love our friend Steve says this all the time. Don't look at the end of the finger. He always compares it to cats and how, like, if you have a laser light, you know, or your finger, you're pointing to something and the cat will look at the end of your finger instead of what you're pointing at. My dog does the same thing. So it's not just cats. But don't look at the end of the finger. Look at what it is pointing to. Teleologically, where is this telegraphing us to be able to see more of a long-range vision of the design and purpose of the material world? I don't know about you, but for me, when I saw this, I was like, yes, because then there's no more question. What is the design? Why are we here? Because the ego mind is always asking those questions like a reporter would, a journalist trying to answer and get the ego so it stops stirring, in anxiety or in depression. I gotta know, I gotta learn, I gotta. And this is sharing with us the principle. There's an inward portion that we're listening to and hearing to, because this word from Shema had the tav that's added in the middle. So this is letting us know this whole thing, if you can hear it, if you can hear the instruction, is meant to deal with your heart, to complete the journey of the heart in the material world, to know the purpose and aim of it. And then we saw about that it had to do with us even being able to sing and announce and testify as to what has happened, because now we have a firm foundation to stand upon because of this time and season of this message that is coming forward. So that is pretty much a quick refresher. I know that was a lot, but we shared a lot.
Yes.
We covered a lot of ground last week.
Yes, we did. But I love it because throughout all the writings, and what you're breaking down and all the videos that you've done, it can seem like a lot of information. Really, in the simplicity of it, it really is our journey back within to connect back to our heart. Like, exactly. That's what I love. It's the same thing being told over and over. You got to be willing to go through the crushing process. You've got to make your oil. This is how you do it. So that's what I love, is that for me, when we go over these things, I just get to see different angles to the multifaceted creator and ourselves being multifaceted, and how I can journey back into myself. How can I journey back in, connect back to my heart, open that heart up, to see reality, as Alec Martin would say, to see reality as it truly is versus through the veil of illusion.
Exactly. That's so beautiful. I'm just sitting here listening to you talk, and my heart is, I just love you so much, Brandon.
I love you too.
I just got overwhelmed in the moment and overwhelmed with the family that's on right now. So I love you guys, and I mean that. I mean, there's truly this thing that's happening right now where I can say I love you as if you are one with my own soul. I love you as my own soul. And there's something that switched, and it just makes me cry a lot when I think about it. And so when I hear you speak, my brother, my friend, my soul, when I hear you speak, I just can't help but just have my heart just leap for joy. And I'm seeing these people that are making comments right now, and I'm just so grateful that you're here, because I feel you. I feel your presence, and I'm just overwhelmed right now. So as you were talking, I was having a picture of the course of the densities that we walk through, right? Because in the course of the densities we walk through, like when we get into the second density, when we become awareness, right? There's awareness. There's first density is just the place of being, like there's creation as is, and then 2 is like second density is awareness, and then and in the awareness section of that, being aware of one another, there's a unity that happens. So you think about the animal world, and you think about how they would work together in a wholeness. And so if, like, Darwin got it wrong when he said survival of the fittest. No, in the way that second density would work is you would have these animals as a completed unit that one would choose to sacrifice itself for the sake of the others, but they worked as a unit. And in that consciousness level, when we get into third density, where we've been at, is then when we learn the separated self, right? So you come from second density where you're used to being one organism, one as a whole and as a herd. So you hear herd mentality. Well, that's not a bad thing, but
Right.
it was just the way they all operated. There wasn't choice in that. It's just, it was this beautiful, harmonious thing of working together and doing what they needed to for survival together. When we entered into third density, however, is when we fully experienced what separateness looks like with choice and being completely separated from one another. And then we got it inverted with the good evil paradigm. And so then we became a nuclear family instead of a corporate family. We had the nuclear family of mother, father, and children, and everyone did their own thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're finding that that wasn't sustainable. We've been seeing that the nuclear family has been falling apart. And what we have been seeing within some of the old church thoughts as we're trying to come out into this new paradigm shift is that we've been saying, well, Satan entered in and sin entered in, and we're having the families fall apart and divorce happens and all this. And I'm looking at it now with a completely different mindset going, no, it's showing that it's not sustainable, people. You want to say that it's all these other things, but really Satan is a thought form, something that is keeping you from joining together in this oneness unity. And because we were meant to be separated for a season, that is why it has fallen apart. It's why the nuclear family has been disintegrating, and we're seeing it more and more. We're actually seeing people that aren't even entering into marriage anymore because they're seeing that the institution of what it was just not sustainable. It was looking the same both within the church and within outside of the church, and even sometimes even more in the church, like the divorce rate was actually being higher than that outside of the church. And we're all looking at this going, what is going on? Well, what is going on is these paradigms that we've lived under are now coming down so that we can embrace something new to enter into fourth density. There's a reason why I'm saying all this. Fourth density is where you took your separateness in third density, found that it was not working and was not sustainable, connected to your heart. So in your separateness, you choose to come together as one.
That's right.
So it's that comprehension of the separateness and willing to work through the separateness in order to bring about unity and union together. You could have bypassed the heart in third density, but when you get into fourth density, it's all about the heart. And so I see this progression, and I see this in these teachings right here about being able to bring in the fact, and Doug and I were talking about issues of inequality and injustice and things that have happened because of third density, and where we're bringing these things up to the surface so that we can all actually enter into the heart chakra, the fourth density, without having those things continuing to separate and divide us, because we learned from that. And now we're taking our wisdom with us. It's like, why did we make those choices? Well, because we had to understand separateness before we could fully come together and choose that. Not be in the second density where we're working as one organism already, but one where we choose to do that through the wisdom of the heart.
That's right. Yeah.
Just so we can connect it to kind of what this is all saying here.
And it's important too that we take this wisdom that you're sharing through these sacred languages and everything, and that helps build us through maturation and into maturity. And I'll just throw this in real quick, because there is a difference between the oneness and wholeness. And we and you were talking a little bit that's exactly what Yeshua was doing when he was on the cross. That we read, my Father, why have thou forsaken me? And I'm not going to get into that. Me and you have, we can get into that some other time. But he was going from oneness into wholeness. And as the energies come in and things are picking up, people are remembering things, past lives, past things, or whatever. Even the status of what we've built right now and who we are, our platforms, our businesses, or the identity of who we think we are, it's important to lay all of that back down, to lay it down, because that's what's kept us in this repeated loop cycle. That's just kept us here in this system as we as gods, as the Elohim, loved our power. We loved our individuality. We loved what we have built as an individual, not as a collective. And as Rob would say, we're moving into that social memory complex as a planetary system, as Mother Earth ascends too, because we're not going anywhere. The densities are consciousness levels. It's our raising our vibration to that density, to that consciousness level, which is why Yeshua would have said, the kingdom's at hand, it's right here, but you can't see it because you are operating at a lower consciousness. I am from above, you are from below. So it's important for us just to surrender that, to give it all up. Once we think, oh, I'm an Arcturian, I'm a Pleiadian, I am a Lemurian, I am this galactic council member or whatever else. No, lay that down. Give that crown back over to the Creator so you can come into the greater, greater than the I am of the wholeness.
Exactly. And in fact, I'm really glad that you brought that up, because I was doing a study earlier today, something that Spirit laid on to me this morning about the Ruka Dakucha, again, the spirit of holiness, and the very first time it's used. And I was looking into like the etymology of the word holy. You're going to love this. The etymology of the word holy in its original form was to be whole and uninjured.
Oh, wow. I love that.
So the Ruka Dakucha, the spirit. So it was translated into the noun. So we have this issue about the noun. Like this is just, I can't seem to let go of this. It's like that essence of knowing within me is we noun everything. And it's a joke in our house now. Stop nouning it. Stop nouning it. Stop making it a noun. It's either going to be a verb or it's going to be an adjective. But if you make it a new noun, it's outside of you. And so I'm looking at this and I saw how the translations took it from the spirit of holiness into the Holy Spirit, capitalized. And so I was even questioning, like, okay, if you didn't have religious dogma and you were just translating the words without church dogma, okay, you were given books, you were just given books that did not have a translation to it, didn't have any sort of bend in the theology of the Roman Catholic Church or any of its offshoots, how different would the translations read?
Right.
You would have the spirit of holiness versus the Holy Spirit. And even in some of the works like the John Etheridge capitalized the spirit of holiness, making it a noun. Mm-hmm. And it's not, because spirit is an essence, something that is unseen, that is felt. They liken it to the wind because that's the only way to describe it. Like you feel the presence of the wind, but you don't see it. But it goes beyond what you're feeling on your skin. It's what goes on in here, what you feel in the sensory organ of your heart. And so even when people say, well, I heard it from the spirit, you felt something that was being revealed to you in here. That was a vibrational frequency then translated to your mind based upon what the mind has as its current level of knowledge, based upon what it is under, that it has subjected itself to.
Mm-hmm.
So this revelation is always changing to help change the mind. So anyway, the spirit of holiness, when you take a look at it, is completely different and is very much tied to what we were talking about here. Because the spirit of holiness, spirit, they didn't even have that word. It didn't even exist in the time of Yeshua. Like spirit is, what is that, right? They understood the unseen essence that's felt. So even in this verse, that is the feminine. That is the divine feminine. And so getting back to the word to finish up the Shema, to just land the plane there, to move us into our next moment, I'm going to go ahead and do a screen share. And if you guys have been asking questions, I'm sorry, I have not been paying attention. I've been just talking to Brandon.
I'm monitoring it. Nobody said me. There's been some very great comments, guys. I love you guys so much in the chat. I really do. Been really great comments. Having a good time in the chat, but there's been no questions yet.
Okay, good. Well, I'm glad that they're enjoying themselves in the chat. That makes me super happy. All right, girl, I know you want to play. My dog is like throwing the stick around and keeps nudging me because she wants to go to the park. She's like, what are you doing? It's time to go play. Okay. And now my cell phone's ringing. Oh my gosh, you've got to be kidding me. That's so hilarious. All right. So what I'm going to do for just a moment, hold on just a second here. If I do not turn off my cell phone, if I do not turn that sucker off, you know what it's going to do? It's going to keep ringing. So I have got to get up and go change. And that.
I'm
Normally
I'm
I do.
I'm
Normally
just I'm
go
just
ahead.
jamming out to that 1996 ringtone right there.
Brandon, you're making fun of me and my flip phone.
No, sis. I'm laughing with you. I ain't laughing at you.
Look at this. Look at this. I don't have a smartphone, people. In February of next year, this will be obsolete and then it'll be a whole nother game changer. But I don't have I don't have a smartphone. I have a very old a burner phone. So yes, very old. It has worked well.
A burner phone.
Burner phone. Gosh, what does Carrie do for a living? No, just kidding.
Right, I was gonna say what you used to do, Karen.
Actually, honestly, side tangent here. The reason why I didn't want to get a smartphone when the opportunity arose is because I didn't want to get glued to it. I already know how much time I'm on the computer. And when I leave the house and I just take this, I'm actually away from electronics because the only thing is phone calls and text messaging. So I did that on purpose. But now I don't know what I'm going to do. I may have to go back to the old answering machine method. Oh my. Anyway, I don't care.
I'm gonna just work and focus on trying to just tap into unlocking the full potential of my brain so I can just bombard everyone else's minds with my mind.
Well, I'm actually looking forward to when we can really truly get to the point where the telepathy is totally unlocked and then we won't need these silly cell phones. We can just ring each other up in our mind, think about it, and have a conversation without uttering any words. Do you know how honest those conversations would be?
Yeah.
Because if it's from your mind, you couldn't, I mean, it's directly from your mind. So you couldn't be thinking something and saying something differently.
Yeah.
Anyway, just okay. I told you I was going to be rummy today.
That's all right. I got you.
Okay. So that divine feminine that we were talking about is in the essence, in the order of this word. And so it's really the instruction of the unseen that is bringing us into this oneness unity that we're to connect to. And that it's really that which is linking us together. And because of that, this is what is giving us the ability to be instructed and caused to hear, because we've been connected to that unseen within. So it's beautiful to see the progression. And then when we move, now you'll probably find this really interesting. Have you ever thought of what the progression of the word God was?
Yes, I mean, on this journey, I've thought a lot. Like, what is that word God? Where did we get
Right.
the word God from? How did it come to be titled God?
Right. So when we are looking at this, I'm going to bring that in here because, again, as I've always shared with you, what I feel the new paradigm that is happening right now is that Hebrew and Aramaic are marrying and merging into one. I've had people that have kind of shared with me before that, they're separated, they're sister languages. And although I do see that, I have felt deeply within my spirit breath, my sensory right here, that they're meant to be unified into one. So that means that it's the merging of both essences. So when I look at this word in English, and Janet Magiro, actually it wasn't Magira, it was whoever the translators were, the Peshitta, put the word but. We see Aleph Lamed Aleph. And just looking at the stature of these letters, I am blown away with what I'm seeing here, because I'm seeing a mirror of the Aleph of the mother and the Aleph of the father with the Lamed in the middle, which is basically saying this mystery of the many that are one, this unseen presence that is felt at the beginning is also there at the end. The mother teaches it, the father teaches it, the Lamed's in the middle, and it's talking about the instruction of the heart. So when we see the other meanings of what we would glance by, we can see but rather, if not, yet, however, on the contrary, or otherwise. So when the translators decide to put but, it's pointing the finger in a direction and you end up looking at the finger. And it's like, no, it's don't look at the but. There's something that it's pointing to. In the marriage of the Hebrew and the Aramaic, we have the word God, what we would translate as God. And it's either little g or big G, because remember, we want to noun everything. So this isn't a capital here. This is just a simple word that is like the God of one. So if you want to consider that, that would be the one infinite creator.
Mm-hmm.
So when we look at this, let's see how this noun moves. I freaking love this because we have the word L here where it says not, but take a look what it also can mean. Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It means nothing. And that, if you understand God, that where it appears to be nothing is where everything is at.
Mm-hmm.
The unseen. Because the
That's right.
unseen, if you take a look at Dr. Joe Dispenza's work and what they've done in the quantum, what is it? Like 99.99999% of everything that is the unseen, and only 0.00001% is actually matter.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So that's what we're talking about here, the nothing, where everything is at. So let's take a look and see how this word actually came about. The root of this word, the very essence of the root of this word is ul, and it means to twist, be strong. The body is being rolled together and being powerful. This is the root structure for God. And then it does the morphing. And I know you've heard me say this before, but the yod and the vav are interchangeable. So if you see a vav and it's removed, generally a yod is going to be put in its place. And the yod is a spark. It is like an energy of divine that gives you power, means, and direction. And so if the vav is removed, so we went from a word that means to be strong, the body rolled together, very powerful. The vav was removed, and instead we got the yod. Well, in doing that, our heart being empowered means strength. Anything strong, specifically a chief politically, a ram from its strength, a pilaster, and an oak or other strong tree.
Mm.
The word pilaster, by the way, is a Hebrew idiom that means priest or priestess.
Wow.
Then we have the feminine form of it. So now the yod is no longer there. Now we just have the oak tree. So the oak tree is a symbol of the revelation that is being brought from El, which is the feminine, aka the dark mother. So Father bringing the dark mother, the hidden, to help us with our shadow work. And why is it an oak tree? Did you know that the oak has the deepest of all the tap roots?
Mm.
So
Did
what
not
is
know
this?
that.
Yeah. So the oak tree has the deepest taproot. And what's so important about that is because this form, knowing that we have the divine feminine that is helping us, the dark mother that goes into the dark with us to help us with our shadow, she is helping us deal with our deep tap roots that are holding us back from becoming God.
Wow. We have a question here. Carrie, Divine Renegade asked, can you review the ram word again, please?
Oh, the ram.
Mm-hmm.
So the ayil, this is the word ayil. So this word is actually, if you were to actually look at this, this would be the word God who has strength within. That's really, if you were to simplify it, a strong leader who has a staff of authority, who is God, because that's all it means, a strong leader who has a staff of authority. So don't think about a bearded guy in the sky or a deity that you're under. It means one who has authority, that has entered into this oneness, who has power on the inside. So this word is strength, anything strong, a chief, as in political, as a leader, the ram from its strength, a pilaster, an oak or any other strong tree, as the pilaster being a strong support, which is a Hebrew idiom for priest or priestess. So in other words, those who are of the priesthood, if you want to be as Melchizedek, you have to be a strong leader, teaching shepherd that has power within you. Your heart has to be activated. The spark of life has to be there.
Mm.
But then what happened? We became nothing. We became separated. We forgot everything. But we didn't realize that in that place of nothingness is where everything is at.
Mm.
So when we bring this together, this word here is letting us know we have to have instruction in the way of one. Mother and father are doing the same thing. They're teaching us. They're pointing to each other. And where are they pointing to? Your heart, because that's where this authority is. That is where the authority dwells. It is never from the mind. It is only from the heart. Any questions on that, or did that help with Ren? Did that help
Um,
answer?
yeah, I think she did. She says she's waited many years for that. On
Oh,
the
that's
no
awesome.
thing, and that word, but you were talking about in there. One of the meanings was nothing for God. God became no thing.
Hmm.
So in that, would it be safe to say, just to help me understand, as we as the Elohim in our creating, um, you said we forgot and became no thing, which has actually made us everything. So in that, we couldn't see what it was. So then we started labeling,
Hmm.
calling. We started calling stuff something instead of leaving it as nothing, because nothing is everything. And in that, we basically created our own prison cells and boxed us in. Because soon as we say I am whatever, whatever, whatever afterwards, we've now left out every possibility for anything else to come into our sphere of reality, because we've said I am this declaration. So
Correct.
therefore it only allows that to come in.
Well, and this is where we have to acknowledge the divine masculine, and in what ends up happening when you are out of balance and you don't have the feminine and the masculine working together. You create a form, a shell of something that is hollow. It doesn't have the full
Mm-hmm.
potentiality of the unseen that fills it, right? It doesn't have
Mm-hmm.
the etheric realm that is filling it. It's just form. So when
Mm-hmm.
when when we came in and as a no thing, and we forgot who we are, and we were creating only from the place of the masculine,
Mm-hmm.
creating form all over the place. And we wonder why structures and stuff don't stand and don't hold, and why there's the raising of things, raising to the ground, raising up, and then raising. The raising up are AISING, and then the raising, as in fire, consuming it down, is nothing being sustainable, because it was only created through the masculine energy as a
Mm-hmm.
form only. And when it's in form only, without the essence of the unseen, it really is nothing. It can't stand.
Which is quite interesting to me. And then I'll let you get back. Is you have certain sects that only will like the Old Testament. They, some people won't even accept the New Testament at all.
Mhm,
But this
mhm.
is where I see that you get into some dark things, is because if you only have the Old Testament, then you can get power, you can get knowledge, and all that, but you're only having one staff, so to speak. And if you go into the New Testament, it will force you or compel you or draw you into connect to the heart. I'm not going to
Mhm.
say, because I don't know the language as well as you do, but I would dare say that if you just went into the Old Testament, you would pretty much dance around the heart. You would never really have the heart pierced and be connected to it. That you would dance around it. It's Yeshua and his teachings that he brought in that actually pierces the heart and connects you.
Oh, absolutely. Because what happens, okay, so let's back it up a little bit, because when I was sharing some scripture with Steve yesterday, because we were talking about, we wanted to talk about Moses and the shining, and, him shining and whatnot. And you can actually see the divine feminine in Hebrew. The
Mm-hmm.
trouble is that when you have a masculine shape or form that is, you put yourself under, right? So you take the
Right.
divine feminine out, and you're building a form of a religion that is now over you, subjugating you. Because of that, then what ends up happening, the whole purpose of the divine feminine, or I'm sorry, the divine masculine is taught by mother, is to tame and yoke the ego.
Mm-hmm.
It's meant to deal with the form of ego so that we can work well with one another. And I'm not going to punch you in the face, and you're not going to punch me back. And that could be with words or fisticuffs, doesn't matter. It could be both at the same time. When you take that essence of the masculine, so you're under this masculine tutelage, but you want the power of the divine feminine without doing the work that is necessary from the divine feminine. So, in other words, you are under this tutelage, you decide not to take the right hand path. right? You decide not to go there. You're under a tutelage of a masculine structure that is over you. So you're either born into this or whatever. You want power. You take the left-hand path because the right-hand path is meant to deal with your ego, to diminish it, tame it, and yoke it. And you don't, and you go to the left-hand path. It is the fullness of ego.
Yeah.
And it becomes blown up. It's really, when you see it from that form and fashion, then you see why you have issues with service to self versus service to others. It's like, I am only seeking control and power here because I didn't really learn the way of what the divine masculine was supposed to look like. I took the masculine form and wanted the power of that in form without dealing with the inner essence of the heart. And so that power is available. It is definitely available. If you want to go into that left-hand path, that is why a lot of magicians or those who have walked into the darkness before the light without taming the ego have, and they use in their spell casting, they use Hebrew letters.
Yeah, because you can see that even with like Aleister Crowley. I know we gotta get on. We're not too far off track, but I saw that the other day. A picture came up of Aleister Crowley, and you have the upside down cross. But I saw on there, and I was gonna get with you about it. Hebrew letters that was on each point of the cross, and I was like, "That's interesting. I'd never noticed it before, but
yeah." So what they do is they take the dark feminine energy without having the divine masculine added to it, and so then they invert it. Because the thing about, again, let's talk about their density. It's all about choice, right? It's being able to be in that separateness and choosing, in the inverted sense, the good and evil aspects of it as a sake of experience to see how it doesn't work. And so we've had people that have chosen to take that path as a catalyst for us to be able to see the distinction between the two. And then what happens is you see the symptoms manifest externally about how both of them don't work. So that is why we're looking at this. And that's why I want it, because if I cannot take what I'm sharing with you to put it into a practical sense, then why am I opening my mouth to speak? If we can't see it from the place of what do we do with this information, then I just need to shut my mouth, because then I'm just being a puffed up talking head when I'm saying it's all about the heart intent and why we're always pointing, go to mother first, go into those light teachings to tame the ego, because then when you enter into the dark mother, you're already in the place of having a softened heart, and she's going to teach you the power that comes with one who is restrained, aka meekness, power under control, not with a blown out ego that is going to take it for itself, but rather take the power to be able to use it to serve others. And in this doing, this is when we begin to help with issues of the injustice in the world, so that we can bring about equality, so that we can bring about diversity without having an inflated ego that wants to control and control, manipulate, and subjugate and continue the inequality. Does that make sense?
Right. Okay. Absolutely.
So just practical application. So I don't see like I have. Hey, my brother Joe's here too. Hey, big bro. I love having, man, Joe's here, Greg's here, the whole family's here. This is just awesome. I'm so happy to see you guys. Let's go back in and finish moving on a little bit further.
Is that the same Joe that came to Creststone?
You betcha. That's Joe.
What's up, Joe? I'd love to give you a hug, man.
I know, right? It's family reunion time. We just need to have him on the screen too, and then we'd have a whole I don't know, we would have more family. That's all we would have. Oh, I miss you, Joe. I miss you a lot. All right, so when we move into the next section, so I think we've pretty much covered the Aleph, Lamed, Aleph. Now we get into a word meaning according to. Look at all this other portion of here. According to, as is, like, even as though, about, because, and how. So again, there's a lot of liberty with these words that are connecting things if they force it into one, okay, this is what it is, instead of what is it saying to you. So I, as the translator, are going to force it into whatever vibrational frequency that I've subjected myself to. So when we move over, I will let you know that in the Hebrew portion, that word is a fallen kaf here. They don't have it written this way because the Hebrew is a transliteration of the Aramaic. They transfer letter for letter the same. So an aleph is the same as an aleph in Aramaic. They just have different fonts, if you would like. So when we look at this, what is this actually saying to us? It's a question. It comes from a way of looking at things where it's saying how or an exclamation, but also where. So when I was talking about the journalistic questions, so remember, we're talking about a season that is coming in with a teaching that is coming to transform us, to give us strength, wholeness, wellness, so that we can become a strong leader, teaching shepherd that is teaching the way of one, because we're one with mother and father that are continually strengthening our hearts. So then we get to this word, and then it's like, okay, so exactly what I just did. I was sharing with you the how of what it looks like in taking these teachings and what it does. I just did that. That's kind of funny. I didn't even really look into the next word, but I explained it before here. But these are the journalistic questions. And when we take a look at these journalistic questions, this is what's so exciting to me. Oh my God, this is so exciting. We got to look at where it's coming from at the root, because within Hebrew and Aramaic, you must always go to the root. That is the heart of the matter. That is the matter that matters to the heart. So the heart of the matter of this word, where it is coming from, is all the way down here at the bottom. And if any of you have followed, this is a very important word. It is Strong's 369, and that should probably light up a few light bulbs if any of you are Tesla fans. This root means to be nothing, to not exist, a non-entity. This is the same exact root that was used for the word when it says Enoch was and he was not.
Wow.
So the questions are, how do we become this nothing? Because remember, you came in as El, to not exist. But you were already a strong leader, teaching shepherd as a God entity. So the questions are like, okay, so now we have this information. It's the season of these teachings. But what is this looking like? Like, how do we do this? And where? Like, okay, so where is this God thing? What is this all about? What is this oneness? And what this is actually sharing with you, the letter Nun is dropped off. So the letter Nun, because it was in its fallen position, is now put into a fallen Kaf. And I love this because the Nun, when it is removed, Nun has to do with progeny. Nun has to do with perpetuity through progeny in creation of an heir. When the Nun is removed, this is directly talking about you. This has nothing to do with your seed line. This doesn't have to do with your kids. This doesn't have to do with your parents. This is about you in your journey. It's a highly spiritual matter that must be perceived within. This is not an external thing. This is an internal thing. And how can I say that? Because the Aleph is present. The Aleph is spirit breath. The Aleph is the unseen but felt realness of experience that one has to experience for themselves. And I can't do it for my kids. I can't do it for my parents. And I can't do it for my friends and my neighbors. I can only do it for me. So in this process, it's saying that through the essence of the unseen, through what we would call spirit, there's a power that is being given to us so that we can comprehend that within nothing is where everything is, because the power lies within the spirit essence that is right here. With the Kaf means to tame and to yoke. But because even though it doesn't show it here and it's in its upside down position, it's saying in order for this to happen, you have to empty your cup.
Yeah. That's surrendering everything back over.
Exactly. Because the true power lies in emptying out everything. Because we continually are making things nouns, we're projecting it outward, we want power within this word. And this is saying, if you want the true power that comes from here, you must choose to empty everything out. so that you as a vessel become non-existent. I've heard Linda say before, and I totally see it in the language. That's why I fell in love with her so much from the very beginning. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's saying everything I've been saying in the language, which is why I'm going to have her on, because she's going to talk about the Hebrew and Aramaic language and the purpose of it. And I just love it. But she's continually talked about emptying like our vessel. And so that the only thing that remains is really the avatar name. And that gives us the ability for the Christ anointing to work through us in its true power, because we're emptying everything out. And this is what allows us to be made completely new, because we're letting go. We are freely laying down everything, getting rid of it, emptying our cup, emptying our vessel out. And that's what this is talking about right here. So that we're in the place where like Enoch was, and then he was not. And then, take that forever for whatever you want to have that considered to be. I'm going to do one more word. How is everybody? Is everybody okay? Can you handle one more word, or have you eaten enough meat so far? What is the temperature of everybody that's in the chat?
If y'all want to let us know. Everybody seems to be good. They're still talking. I'll save this. Joe brought up one question. We can save it. That's probably something you could probably private message him about. But he said, can you give me your translation of truth? I'm assuming he says the word truth, that him and Ursula are doing their own translation, and would love yours, that he has a feeling that nothing and truth are related. So if you want to.
That's really good. Yeah. I would have to ask, Joe, we can set up a time to chat on that, because that's an excellent question. And I would say it would need to also be, is it the Aramaic word for truth, or is it the Hebrew word for truth? Because they're kind of saying two different things. They are very much connected to one another, but it has to do with the level of maturation you're in, whether you're in the bride training or whether you're in the queen training. Or is mother still teaching you, or is father teaching you? And we can talk about that. So please send me an email so that I don't forget, and we can set a time to chat. Good question, though. Amazing question. So everybody's ready. I can do one more word. We're okay?
I got thumbs up.
Okay, I'm so excited. I love the fact that you guys are wanting some more. That's so awesome. Okay, because I could literally do this all day, but when I get done, I crash hard. So the next word translated is their desires, okay? This is their desires, but we need to look at this, because this is lusting after, desiring, longing for, to long or to yearn for. So I decided to look at like a definition of yearn, and it is have intense feelings of longing for something, typically something that one has lost or been separated from. Based upon what we were talking about with third density separation, there is something within us that is already longing and yearning for something else. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So what is that what we're longing for? What is this? I found this really atypical. I'm using a different word this time, you guys, instead of interesting. I'm using atypical. Are you proud of me? I'm proud of myself. So atypical is how this word morphed, because in its root form, it's just resh gimel, just two letters. Now, what I find atypical about this is that the rest of the letters that were added, honestly, I have never seen a gimel. I have never seen a gimel on the suffix side, ever. Never, ever have I seen a gimel on the left-hand side. The word for gimel is or the letter in word form, gamel means a camel. It has to do with riches and wealth. It has to do with lifting oneself up. But in its root form, if you trace it back, gam means to gather and assemble. It means to walk to the water. So it's taking you to a place where you're gathering and assembling, and then the lamed is added to it. So the gimel is gam, gather and assemble, the lamed that is on the suffix side. The teachings of Father, which is the divine feminine. So, gimel, gathering and walking. when we take a look at this, we have Gimel, Yod, Gimel right here, right next to each other. And this is really a pattern of like the cherubim on the Ark of the Covenant, because it said that the glory of the Father dwelled between the cherubim. And the glory, you've got two cherubim that are facing each other, two Gimels. One is mother, one is father. And actually they said that they were intertwined. They were intertwined in a what do they call that? Tantric position, face to face.
Yeah, it's tantric.
Okay, so they were in a tantric position, face to face, facing one another. And the yod is a seed. It is a spark of life. So I'm looking at this and I'm going, well, isn't that interesting? Because they have something here that they said it has to do with lust or longing for or yearning for. That is a pattern of the Ark of the Covenant with the cherubim that were actually in a tantric position, that there was a seed being planted, a power, a spark of life that was between the two of them. This was also known as the chariot throne of the cherubim. So what are we seeing here? There's the intimacy between the masculine and the feminine within, that once they are uniting is producing a seed, a powering up of the Merkaba, of the chariot throne of the cherubim. But what it is saying to us in this, because this is something we long for, this is something where we came from, we forgot, we got diminished, we got slowed down, we got skins, we got chaff on us, diminishing our light body. So we're longing for something. What are we longing for? We entered into the poor and destitute pace. We want to be raised up. We want the power of the two gatherings of mother and father coming together, giving us the power, the seed that is within us that will ignite our heart so that we can complete our mission here. And then Hun, have the wealth and the riches that come through the completion of the revealing of the essence of the unseen, the divine feminine energy that we connect to, that makes us meek while we are in our flesh suit, because these are the true riches, wealth that is waiting to be discovered, that we're longing for, but it is only meant for those who dare and to venture into the darkness to be able to do their shadow work. So in other words, there is literally a drawing. There's a drawing that is wanting us to go into the shadow if we've completed the journey of mother. So mother is through the divine masculine. She's like, your form is ready. Okay. Your ark is ready. The taba, the box is ready. It is ready to be filled with the unseen essence, which is the spark of life. But you need to dare to venture into the dark in order to receive the wealth and riches, because the glory is revealed only through the divine feminine, through your shadow.
Wow.
It's the only way it happens. Right here.
Wow. That's beautiful.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So, what I'm really hoping is that by us doing this, that for some of you, this will want you to draw into the study, because it's one thing for me to give you of my own manna. What I share with you is what I see in my now. Am I saying that it's an absolute? No, I'm not. I'm giving you all the pieces of that which I see in my now. But I am never going to tell you this is exactly what it is. Oh, so this is what it is. No, that is not what it is. It is what I see in my now. It is the manna that I have taken, the fruit of my own plate that I'm giving to you in a buffet meal. I'm setting some things out for you to sample and to look at based upon my excavation, my exegesis of the work that I've done, for you then to take a hold of it, choose to bite, maybe eat it, and let the essence of this unseen and here feel into it to see what it does for you. If it doesn't do anything in here, then flush it, walk away. But if it is doing something into you here, it could be quite simply that the essence of the unseen, what we call the spirit, the kudsha, the spirit of holiness, is drawing you to come in so that you can experience wholeness. Because that's what holiness is. so that you can be the uninjured. This is exactly why I shared with Brandon this week my healing testimony, because I'm sitting before you now as the uninjured, as one who has been made whole. And it was through the spirit of holiness, the Ruka the Kucha, through the sacred languages and the stuff that we're sharing with you, that I was able to do that. And that's why we're despookifying some of these things, because this verse in its English translation is like, oh my God, don't go anywhere. You're itching for stuff, your ears, you're going off course, you're going into doctrines of demons, when the crux of this whole thing is based upon becoming whole and healed. Because there's a season and a time that these teachings are coming forward, and we've entered into that. Are you willing to empty your cup? And that's a question that we honestly have to ask ourselves that. I can't ask that of you. I can't ask you. I can't go through here and Ren and ask you and Robert and Lisa and Claire. I can't ask you or Heather, hey, are you willing to empty your cup? That is not me to ask. That isn't up for me to ask you at all. That's none of my business. That is literally none of my business. That is your business. That is the business of the Ruka the Kucha in your life. The unseen and what it's calling you or not calling you to. What is that feeling that is being generated right here? And if it's just to listen to the words, that's beautiful. If it's causing you to want to begin to study it yourself, that's marvelous. If it's causing you to walk away, that's beautiful as well.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, it's important when we're on this, and this was a hard lesson for me to learn, and I love it because of how you present it, and there's some others that present things like this as well, is we're not telling anybody this is how it is, this is how it's got to be, or whatever, because that's still underlining, implying my truth, your truth. It's still in the game of duality, and the whole purpose is to come into oneness, come into the Christed oneness, then lay that down into wholeness. So you present it in a way where it's just information. That's it. It's only information. And what you do with that information is whatever you do with that information. I'm not telling you what to do with it. I'm telling you, I am presenting, like you present, Carrie, your journey and your path as to where you are right now and how you see things right now. And that's what I do with mine as well. Where in the past I was totally an ego and it's like, you've got to do this and you've got to do that. And this is the truth. And this is the only way it can be. And
I was there too, Brandon. I was a Torah terrorist. When I went into that Messianic camp, I was a Torah terrorist. And I lost many relationships and I hurt a whole lot of people. But in truth, I was hurting myself because I was continuing to push away and to separate. Yeah. And so, again, being able to learn the contrast, right? Experiencing what contrast does. And is it bringing us closer together or is it repelling and pushing us away? So I don't begrudge it. I'm very grateful for it. I'm super grateful for it because, of course, I'm coming to this now place of being able to share these things because of the experiences of the contrast. One thing I will say, though, regarding this is that when wholeness happens, or I shouldn't say wholeness, because wholeness is a whole different step. When oneness happens, when the Christ anointing is made available for those who are going to be embodying it at this time, there's much that's going to be coming back and biting us in our own butt. So my recommendation is to do as much shadow work as you can now. Because anything that is outside of that frequency is going to turn around and it's going to face you. This is like we were talking the other day about the ego turning and facing itself, right? So you have the real you that is standing behind you, and then you have the ego out in front. And the ego out in front is Carrie. Okay, that's me. That's my vessel. When we get to the place where the Christ anointing is activated, the ego then has to turn and face. And the ego, when it turns and faces, then what it does, and this is the interesting part, because you have the Christed anointing, the higher self, and then you have the ego standing here, and then behind the ego is the lower self. If you have transmuted the lower self and the ego into one, where the lower self is no longer an issue because you've shielded it, or you've not shielded it, you've been shielding it. I did a good job of that with my multiple egos. But once you can integrate the shadow and welcome it home and no longer shame and guilt it, just registering that is part of you, it's just part of you, Then
Mm-hmm.
what happens is that Christ anointing of the fullness of is looking face to face with your ego.
That's right.
And in that moment, as becoming, you will behold the Christ as
Mm-hmm.
yourself. And you can walk this way for a very long time. Because what this is, you are then in your ego, which is Carrie. Then me as my ego is standing there, okay? My ego, and then the mirror of Christ is here, and I'm reflecting it back to self. I'm reflecting it back. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I've become whole.
Mm-hmm.
The only way I'm going to be whole is when the ego bows
That's right.
and chooses to lay its life down for the
Yep.
sake of the adversarial friend, the Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Because the ego is going to see Christ as an adversarial friend dependent upon what is going on. So the things that are biting you in your butt are the adversary part that are saying you're not reflecting that image. The image is here now because that is the measure standard. That's the standard of measurement. And that is going to keep biting you. But once you have gone through that, then you merge as one. But the only way you can do that is the ego must bow. It must sacrifice itself. It must lay its life down as the greatest gift it can give as a friend to the wholeness and the totality of all.
That's right. That's beautiful. Beautiful way to put all that.
And that's what this whole verse is talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like no wonder why they wanted in that vibrational frequency. I'm not going to say that they didn't want. Didn't comprehend
There
what it
you go.
was saying. We didn't comprehend what it was saying. So therefore, we translated it into something that in that day and age, when we translated it, we could comprehend it through here because we're taught through the Greco-Roman mindset to approach everything through the head and not the heart.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, it had to be a certain way. And
Mm-hmm.
now, because the heart is being exposed, we can see it through a different set of lenses because we are now ready for it.
Right. Yep. I love that you switched that too, because we need to let that go of an us and a them and they and they're doing this and look at what they're doing and all that. Lay that down, surrender it. It is, and I know people have very good intentions in what they do. That's not what this video is about. I understand that. I'm not pointing fingers. I did it too. Gosh, I was like Paul. I was the chief of sinners when it come to pointing out them and the days.
Oh, man.
But we need to move in, and we need to move past it and let that go. We had two questions, Carrie. If you got
Yeah,
a
I got
minute,
time. I got time.
Divine Renegade asked, bride training versus queen training. Where do I catch this information?
In pretty much every video that I've ever made. I know, Ren, you're like, really, Carrie? That does not help me. I can sum it up to you right now. Okay. In summation, the bride training is a paradigm, and I've said this before, Brandon, I know you're going to know this. You could probably say it verbatim. The bride training. So I'm not going to talk about the natural element of what this looks like, because in the natural element, I'm going to turn off my camera, by the way, because I can see I've got some low bandwidth and I don't want it to be shoddy. So I'm just going to turn off. Oh, now it's fine. Never mind.
Yeah, it's not. You're not.
Okay.
Messing up.
So the bride training. Okay, we'll do the natural because this will make sense to translate into the spiritual. If you were raised in a culture that had this as something that was already established, and of course we have been way out of it because we got Greco-Romanized and this wasn't anything. If you're living in the West, this wasn't anything that was ever passed on to you ever. We got the Greco-Roman mindset. The head is the only thing that matters. Feelings don't matter. Everything must be thought of here in a logical form, very masculine in structure. But if you were raised up in the way you should go through this process of Hebrew Aramaic, what would happen is from the age of 0 to 12, mother would be teaching you the divine masculine, how to build form. What does that look like? What is the practicality of that? Mother would be teaching you your ABCs. The mother would be teaching you the shape, the mnemonic shapes of the Paleo Hebrew, or the pictograph Hebrew to be able to begin telling you a story to create a form of what your journey is going to look like. And as you begin to mature, by the time you got to the age of 12, she would be teaching what would be the golden rule, the mnemosa, if you know what that means. So man's laws that allow us to function within one another so we're not beating each other up. Again, I always say, I'm not going to punch Brandon in the face, because if I do, he's going to punch me back. Mother would have already dealt with all of that. These would have been societal laws to help us as we're dealing with taming our ego. So you've heard people talk about other people's children. Again, now I'm pointing fingers, but you'll hear people talk about other people's children saying, oh, they're just spoiled brats. What they're saying is that those parents did not give good laws, mnemosa, to their children. So the children are running amok and causing chaos everywhere. Well, in the society where they would be teaching this, they would be roping that in. They would be reeling that in and saying some of this stuff isn't going to fly because you're in the mnemosa season. You are learning how to work with each other because you were born with an empty mind. We need to teach you how you need to deal with this. And she would have taught the system of duality. She would have begun showing the comparisons of what good is and what evil is based on mnemosa. Mnemosa was always pointing towards oneness. That's why the word Aleph the letter Aleph is added on the end. So mother is always pointing to this oneness unity, to the divine feminine, but you can't get there yet until you deal with the ego. By the time you get to the age of 12, you would be tested to see if you were meeting the measured requirements of the mnemosa so that you could be considered a son and daughter of the commandments. Mm-hmm. Do you know your mnemosa? And if you did pass that, that means you are now accountable for all of your actions. All of your actions. You are now accountable because you know what the mnemosa is. This keeps us all safe. That is bride training. So in other words, you get to the point of the accountability where now you can be married, which isn't married, it's really betrothed. You can now be betrothed as set apart because you're accountable for your actions. Now you can go into the hidden teachings. Now you can go in the dark because you have enough light. You've tamed your ego that now we're going to get you ready for your queen training. So what does this mean? Queen in ancient Hebrew wedding is what the title was given. The husband would be the king, but we're talking about us. Okay, it's masculine and feminine principle as one. Of course, we separate it out, but the divine wedding is to get you to realize that we have to bring the feminine back in. We've had plenty masculine. We've had the form because mother teaches form, but we haven't had the divine feminine. So when you get into the father's teaching, now he's like, look, you're old enough and mature enough. You are now responsible. Now we can talk about the things that cannot be spoken of. Because you have been initiated into this process, your heart is ready. You are in the heart posture to receive the teachings, the dark sayings, the ringing a bell when I say this, the dark sayings, the dark teachings that are hidden, that are not given to anybody unless they are mature enough to receive it. Mm-hmm. These teachings are setting you up for intimacy that takes place on the wedding day. So now you are not the bride of Christ. You are in the training session dealing with your shadow so that on the wedding day, when activation go time happens, you now become one as Christ, the wife, who is queen. So there are two different teachings. So how does that translate out to us? Okay, that's fine, Carrie. Thanks for telling me all this. What does that mean? That means dependent upon where you are in your spiritual path is going to be how you see the writings. Are you still in mother's teaching? Are you still learning the form? Are you still needing to see the contrast? Is that all you can see is contrast? Because if all is contrast and you're making everything a noun and you're pointing it externally, you still haven't learned the maturity of mother's teaching. You're in bride training right now. Because once you get to the end of bride training, when you see the fullness and you can begin to see both sides, not just your side, my truth, your truth. Once you can begin to see both sides and you've crossed and you're standing in the middle, you can see both the for and the against, the good and the evil, and you get to the place where you stop you're not choosing a side. You're not saying, I'm for this, or I'm for that, or this is evil, or this is good.
That's
You are
right.
actually beginning to look in a place of neutrality. That does not mean that we do not see the injustices, okay? If somebody is raping a child, I am going to go and rip that pervert off, and I'm going to punch him in the face, or I'm going to call the cops, okay? I'm not saying that, please. Don't think that I'm talking about neutrality as not doing something when something needs to happen, okay? I'm not
That's
talking
right.
about that. I'm talking about the maturity that is within me so that I am not tugged either way by being emotional about any given subject. As soon as I'm at that place and I can look at it and breathe through it instead of being pulled all over the place because of my truth, your truth, good, evil, I got to choose a side, and you begin seeing it, now you're ready to go into the hidden teachings.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're ready to enter into the intimacy of the dark chambers of your heart, because then you can start seeing the good and evil within. Because if you can only see it externally, you're never going to be ready to go into the intimate chambers of the heart, which prepares you for the intimacy of the intimate encounter of Christ within you as one. And trust me, spiritual piercing does, because the seed has to be brought in to create a new creation. And you cannot be brought into the intimate chambers unless you're ready for it. The door will stay closed. Like, no, you haven't gone to get your oil. You can't enter into this door.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. And that answers, I believe that answers, and it could be answered in a different way using kind of like raw law of one material, whatever, but you just answered Emery's question. And he asked, can you speak on the graduation process of service to self versus service to others, aka duality, and we transform from caterpillar into the butterfly, service to all, when the two become one? That is that process. That's exactly what she explains it differently than Ra would in the raw law of one material, but it's the exact same thing.
Yeah, it is. And again, I want to make sure that there's this distinction made too, is that as I'm sharing these things with you, I am not of the love light community. Okay. I'm not into this new age movement whatsoever, because the new age movement fails to discuss or bring in the lower nature of self. And if you cannot, and I showed you with that whole picture of what that looks like about the integration, so that when the Christ mirror comes, you don't have a shadow hiding behind you that keeps biting you in your ass because you've integrated it. So the love light community does not deal with that issue. And you have to, because you cannot become a whole being if you cut off part of yourself. There is no wholeness, aka there is no holiness, because you are not at the place where you are uninjured. Because the only way feeling to heal is to get the injured part to now come back home as if the offense never happened, as being uninjured.
That's right.
And really, do you know what that is really? That is really your child. That is your inner child that we're talking about. So if you want to cut off your child that is within you, the place where joy erupts from, where my champagne bubbly goes all over the place, that's my inner child dancing in its freedom. So if you want to cut off your child for the sophistication, you are never going to get into that childlike joy, and you're never going to enter into the kingdom as a little child, which is purity and innocence as uninjured.
Yeah. And I love that example that you gave. That was so good. I wrote it down because to me, what a lot of people have done, some people have like bypassed this lower nature part altogether and tried to go right into the Christ. You know, they tried to turn and face the Christ, but not integrate this. And I believe a lot of people, and no pointing fingers, this isn't, I hate to say it that way, but I have seen it where they haven't dealt with that lower nature, and they go around and they suck oneness. I'm one, because they've heard the concept of oneness unity. They've heard, oh, well, yes, we're all one, nothing's separate, everything's together. And I have seen the denial of that lower nature. But to me, true oneness is the total integration of the lower nature. And now you're ready to turn as the scripture would say in the English, we all with unveiled face will behold the glory of the Lord as if looking in the mirror. You're the one looking in the mirror. You are the glory of the Lord. You are the Lord once you've integrated that lower nature, and now you're ready to surrender that oneness over to the reflection that you're seeing in the mirror of the Lord, which is wholeness.
Exactly. So if you want to go into the Holy of Holies, where the Ark of the Covenant is, where the true power is, the cherubim, the throne cherubim, aka or Merkaba, you need to become healed, and you need to be as uninjured. That's what the Holy of Holies is, and that's why I wanted to bring to you the definition and where that word holy came from. I'm sharing something on Facebook later today that I was working on this morning that talks about the Ruka, the Kucha, the very first time that it's spoken of. And I think it'll be very eye-opening, because it is talking about pretty much, it's like linking what we're sharing here today through a different perspective of our own maturation of what that whole process is. So we live in an amazing time, because we are in the season. The opportunity has presented itself through its teaching. I'm not the only voice. I'm just sharing things from the Hebrew and Aramaic perspective. And there's other Aramaic perspectives that are going out, and Hebrew as well, and they're all marrying. The only thing that I think is different is that I'm saying that the marriage of the two need to take place. The Hebrew and Aramaic need to merge. They can no longer be separated, because that's what's causing that division. You know, I've had people say, oh, you're teaching the dirty language because the Hebrew is the authentic and the pure. And I'm like, obviously you haven't gone into the Aramaic. To call that the dirty language, again, demonizing the divine feminine. Oh, don't even go there. And I'm like, well, you're missing half yourself. I say do go in there, because you're missing half yourself, a very important piece, because you're only saying that it's dirty because you're still in mother's teaching and you don't want to go in to see your own filth.
Right. We had one more, Carrie. I think it'll be real quick, and then we can wrap this up. But Lisa Hodge said, are the left and the right hemispheres together and unity? And I think that was when you were going about with the masculine and the feminine. And yes, they are, but they're only one aspects. Just like, you know, how I got that tattoo on my arm. There's an upper, there's a lower, there's a left, there's a right. You know, they're all just aspects of the creator, and we can latch on, and that's how we've gotten this mess that we're in, or what appears to be in the world, is people have latched on to just the lower, right? And that's it, or just the higher, or just the left, or just the right. It's the integration, and that's the maturation process, is the integration of all of it. The lower, the upper, the left, the right, all of it. That's wholeness. That's what that tattoo is. That's wholeness. The inside, the small circle, the outside, all the different fragments, seeing it for what it is, integrating it back into your vessel. That's wholeness.
Exactly. And the only other thing I in that wholeness aspect of it that I think that is very important is that when we do that, what you're actually talking about, for another term that somebody can, like, okay, what is Brandon talking about? We're talking about heart-brain coherence.
Exactly.
That's heart-brain coherence. Because the only way where the logic and the emotional brain can come together as one state of coherence. If you are in discoherence, this is kind of the amazing part of when you triggered, like emotional triggers, and anybody who's had CPTSD or PTSD knows this very well. Your logic brain turns off. There is no logic. You are in pure emotion, pure adrenaline, pure terror, pure just emotional backlash of something, and you cannot think. The logic side of your brain totally turns off. The heart rate increases, the brain waves and the heart waves are all over the place, and you are not in coherence. So when they all come into working harmonious order, they are in coherence, where everything is working together in unison. So we do experience it. We're just not aware of it, because the ego, the trauma, the pain and suffering, the stuff that we haven't transmuted, that's the dark stuff that we hold into our place. We call this sacred and holy when we're not healed and whole. So our heart really isn't holy. It's not whole. You can only call it holy when it's whole and healed and uninjured. Until then, it's common, because everybody is walking around with wounds.
Yep.
And that's not a judge statement. That is a statement as is. It's just a statement.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, if it's piercing you, if it's causing you and it would cause you to flare up, then that there's probably a really good sign, that especially if anything that I've shared today, that there's still some healing that needs to be done.
And that's okay.
Yes. Guess what? Because of that, it gives us an opportunity to come alongside of you and walk with you through it.
Mm-hmm.
You're
That's
not
exactly
alone.
right. That's the
Pick
way
up
it
the
should
phone, call.
be.
That's right. That's
Only
right.
only the lower nature, only the ego going into that left-hand path first would look at another individual who's suffering or going through it or healing on their journey and think, well, I'm glad I'm so much further along than they are, or whatever, other than anything other than compassion, anything other than to give my life for my brother or my sister. That's a real good indicator as to where you're at. And I know because I was there. I was in that. Oh, look at me. I've got downloads and I know things that you don't know. It's so stupid.
I know. And the ego does that because the ego just, it looks at it and they've shamed the ego, okay? And I'll say the ego, not who we are, not who the
Right.
realness of our vessels are, but the ego, they do a very good job of minimizing emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep.
And so shaming and guilting for having any emotion at all and making it not something that's accepted, even if you're angry, even if you're bitter, if you have rage, it's like, oh, you can't have those things. The ego will shame you. Really?
Mm-hmm.
No. That is part of the feeling aspect of it. So if you cut yourself off from your emotions, guess what? If you cut yourself off from your emotions, the only place that you can be is service to self.
That's right.
That's it. That's
Mm-hmm.
it. Because there is no compassion. You don't even have compassion for yourself to allow yourself to feel. So the only
Mm-hmm.
thing that you can do to offload your pain is to subjugate other people and control and manipulate them.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
So if you find that pricking you and you want to defend positions and things like that, that means that you need to get back in your heart. You need to get some healing done.
Okay.
And just FYI, and I'm going to say this, if you keep seeing a bunch of narcissists around you, there's a really good chance that that mirror is you. Because there's a lot of areas that we are so wounded in that we manipulate one another because we are too afraid. We don't trust. We don't have enough compassion and grace for our own pain and suffering. So we have to control everything around us. And so when you see narcissists, yeah, are there narcissists? Were there narcissists in my life? Yes, but they were used as a catalyst, as a mirror to show my own narcissism that I wasn't willing to look at, trying to
Mm-hmm.
control the situation because my pain was so incredible that I had to control and manipulate everyone around me. I just couldn't see it. So they had to be brought in my life in order for me to see my very own traits that I needed to heal. And guess what, guys? When you do that, you no longer attract them because you
Mm-hmm.
shattered the mirror.
Man, did we just jump from transmuting fear into love to feel to heal?
Yes, we did. Imagine how all of that works together, Brandon. Imagine that.
All things work together for my good.
That was so good. It's just a natural progression. That's the thing. As soon as you transmute the fear into love, it just spills all over. And the next thing you do, you're talking about the healing process because it's all meant to work. It works synergistically together. It has to. So thank you. That was awesome. That was a great segue. It's a good way to land the plane on this whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Carrie. I loved it. I got some notes here
Love
I
you.
took.
Good. Well, I thank you guys for joining us today for another hour and a half of a conversation. And we still didn't get through that verse. Notice there's still more food to be eaten from the rest of that verse. But I think you're seeing now there's so much more that has not even been available to us. And I just feel I'm so honored to be able to bring my portion to you and share with you guys today. So thank you.
Yeah, love you guys. Thank y'all.
As Dale Allen would do.
Yeah.
Spirit breath. Namaste.
Namaste, guys.